I'm being joined by a former Minister of Communication, Mr. Adebayo Shitu, is live with us here in our studio. Thanks so much indeed for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here with you.
For a moment, this is not the first time you are hearing that there will be a cabinet reshuffle. But when you are hearing it again, how does this come to you?
Well, it's a normal thing in governance. It is only Mr. President in every election that is given a term certain, 4 years for each term. But for every other, appointee, they hold office at the pleasure of the president, who alone was given a mandate.
So it's a constant, only constant.
It is only constant. Change
himself and his deputy,
yeah, his deputy,
and the vice.
Of course.
They are the only constant.
They are the only constant.
So anybody, including the kitchen cabinet,
everybody can be changed. Changed at any time.
I mean, what prompts? Because when he set up an appraisal committee to look into the affairs of the minister, we imagine that may be made public so that Nigerians might be able to judge and look at who is working and who is not. Although there are popular opinions as to those who they see. In fact, the presidency is now telling some of the ministers that go out there and start talking to Nigerians. I wonder why you will be in public office and you will be lip-sealed and tongue-tied, and you are not able to speak to the performance which you are being called to do. I mean, how much of a danger is it when you are in public office, especially in a Bola Tinubu cabinet, in a very difficult terrain that the government says they're trying to turn things around? How difficult is it for a minister that is keeping silent? How do you impress your principal?
Well, the truth, which may be bitter, but which must be said, is when people who have never been in public office are being appointed, a lot of it relies on guesswork. People are nominated, particularly in a political atmosphere like this. There are people who became ministers who we never heard of their names before they got appointed. So, I mean, it is a 50-50 thing. It is a hope that maybe because he has had a good education, he's been a lecturer somewhere, he's been in one civil service appointment or whatever, or he may have contributed, to the campaign process which brought him, Mr. President, in.
Or being nominated by
to be nominated or being good. So, I mean, it is neither here nor there. It's a risky thing.
And those who are Minister of State, are they somewhat unlucky because they are usually in the shadow of the substantive minister?
That is it. I mean, we must be fair to people who are, ministers of state, because no matter how active you are, you remain under the shadow of the substantive minister. And we have had situations in the past where there had been crisis of confidence between substantive ministers and their, their second in command within the ministry. Some substantive ministers may be, people who want to, dominate and overhaul everybody, And I am aware that more often than not, ministers of state are given, perhaps some departments within the substantive ministry. The substantive minister would want to be seen to be the one in charge. And it does happen.
So that's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
How brutal do you think the possible or the imminent change could be?
Well, it is only Mr. President who knows what he has had.
Well, you're a member of the party.
No, I mean, we do not have...
From what you see, yes, and the President Tinubu that you know,
yes,
and the messaging that we do know and hear, that there are a lot of politicking going behind the scene. As soon as the first hint about a reshuffle came, a lot of people were running around trying to save their jobs, but in the true sense of it, we've seen Bola Tinubu do this in Lagos when he was governor. It changed quite a few people. It retained quite a few people. And there are those who have worked with him from day one, are still held on to that position up until today. They're still working with him. He's appointed them in some capacity. But from the kind of person that you say, a lot of people say that he has high hopes and high expectations. If you don't perform, there are those who even say that Bola Tinubu is the kind of person that would disagree with you at a cabinet meeting, But at the end of the day, if you are able to impress and convince him, he might go with your policy direction. So with the much that you know about him, how brutal could this possible...
Well, I think the word brutal will be a misnomer in this situation. We have a president who has a mandate for 4 years to deliver on his promises. And he tries to recruit, people to work for him. He might have wrong impressions. He might have exaggerated opinion about one person or the other. And you see, when you refer to me as being a member of the party, unfortunately, in this country, there are no platforms, real platforms, for party members to aggregate views on governance. It is usually the man who has been given the mandate. He would have an idea of what type of government he wants to run. He would also try to get people he wants to recruit. More often than not, he may have wrong perceptions about them. They may come in and he may be lucky.
But
I want to give an example.
Is that where the kitchen cabinet comes in? His advisors, those who are supposed to go to town, see for themselves, give a feedback to him to help him to guide his direction.
You cannot trust anybody, even if you are talking of kitchen cabinet.
It doesn't look like there's a collapse of support for the president, because there are critical areas that there are failings in this government, and you imagine that the president has done his job by appointing them.
Well, I have said it. The president is not in a position to, except those who had worked with him, perhaps in the past. But for, at the national level, I mean, this will be the first time he'll be recruiting people from all parts of the country, most of whom he may never have met in life, but he may just be relying on recommendations, perhaps of interested, power blocks within the party who would, give information and sell their own candidates for one good reason or the other, or let me say one reason or the other. So, and look, the Yorubas have this adage. They say, "Eni tí ò bá ní wọ́ yẹ̀wù, kò lè mọ ohun ṣe níbẹ̀." Mr. President has, an opportunity to decide what he wants. If you are not there, or if he does not tell you exactly what he wants, it will be very difficult. But I think one failing in our system in this country is that when people are either to be appointed or have been appointed, we really don't have a kind of reorientation exercise, which will perhaps take a week or 2 weeks to perhaps school those to be given jobs.
So that they can be up to speed immediately when they
really understand what are the priorities of their employer.
So there's that gap.
So I believe there's that gap. We don't
it might be unfair, isn't it, for some of them have not spent a year in office since their appointment.
Well, it doesn't matter. If good, I mean, let me give, I'm sorry I have to give one very
Absolutely. Go ahead, please.
Look, Olubunmi Ojo, Minister of Internal Affairs. Ordinarily, Internal Affairs is not one place where anybody can shine. But within a month or two, I mean, he struck a very...
Interestingly, he made a cut, because we put together some faces of those whom some Nigerians have said they are the vibrant ones. And there might be some vibrant, quiet ones. But we do not know how anyone will be vibrant and be quiet at the same time. For about 9 or 10 of them, I've been seeing are the vibrant ministers in the Bola Tinubu cabinet. And these are some of those who Nigerian thinks might be retained in these in their positions, including Nyesom Wike, FCT, Odubunmi Tunji Ojo,
Minister of Works,
Minister of Works, Umahi, Minister of Budget, Bagudu, Minister of Finance, Wale Edo, Minister of Health, Professor Ali Pate, the AGF, Latif Fagbemi, the Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mama, Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo. These are about 9 people that people thought that, look, they have shine in their different offices. They may not be the perfect example of what the job really means or is, but they've shown some quality and they've been vibrant. And you mentioned just one of them.
Of course, I agree with all your recommendations. I agree they will certainly be more than the 9 you are mentioning. But you see, these ministers don't give a report to the public. They are supposed to be giving their report to Mr. President, who appoints them. If they had been the talking type, of course, the public will be able to, have better knowledge of what they are doing. I want to give an example. When I was in the cabinet of Buhari, there was a time we left a meeting, journalists came, they were interviewing me, and then a colleague of mine, they also went to him. If you know how he reacted violently against the journalist, he said, did I invite you? Did I ask you that? Did I say I want to talk to you? For a public officer who was so scared of talking to the press. It happened, I saw it. I mean, I won't mention the name of the minister. And interestingly, why I spent just 4 years, that minister spent 8 years in the government.
If you look at those faces, and there are those who are criticizing heavily this government and its policy directions, and perhaps justifiably, the president has a good grounds to say, I'm going to change a few people here, even though you've not spent up to a year in office, but then Nigerians are on my case to perform and to deliver to them. If you were in President Brother Tinubu's shoes, probably you would have done these changes earlier, isn't it?
Well, it is the position of a president is that of a father, it's that of a guarantor, is that of a director, somebody who directs and perhaps also nurtures. What I would advise is that any time people are to be posted to positions, if we cannot get some kind of interviews to try to look at their potential, because right now there's no means of knowing anybody's potential. People rely on, recommendations.
We thought that those are some of the highest positions.
Yes.
People have to be tested in their field to be able to make the cut.
No, you see, a minister could be appointed to any ministry, But while doing that, there must also be reservation or caution to ensure that what will be the point in appointing somebody to a particular ministry when he does not even understand, what he's going to do there. So I would suggest that any time ministers are to be appointed, there should be some kind of interviewing for them to know where they are likely to be able to do well.
But they are screening for them anyway.
No, as screening at the Senate,
security checks on them.
A security check does not mean competence check for the position or for the jobs that...
So you are looking at it from the point of view of a private sector kind of appointment.
Yes.
Where if you are to appoint an MD or of a bank, for example,
you must,
the person has to go to the rigor of understanding and telling you what the job is.
Apart from that, there must also be some orientation training of 1 or 2 weeks before they resume to their position. Resource persons should be brought. For instance, from my personal experience, and I'm sorry to say this, but I'm saying it in with the best of intention. Every minister is supposed to be the image maker for not only Mr. President, for also the government. But you find situations that people become ministers and they become unreachable. Even at my own little level as a party, a top party person, at least by my state level, if not at the national level. You phone many of our ministers, they will not pick your call.
They call it the arrogance of office.
You send text to them.
It's a common disease for people. As soon as they get into office, their nature and their character change.
They will not even respond. I mean, I have a minister I wanted to give some very vital, information as to how he can best, succeed in the ministry and add greater value to Nigeria. But the man refused, even after text messages, he refused to say.
Maybe he doesn't use the number again.
He uses, you can imagine even using,
or maybe he's too busy, his hands might be...
Well, he has been busy for more than a year now. I didn't need anything personal from...
But if there is, in all of these hint of possible change, and we understand that this might happen within the next few days, What do you think will, because it's supposed to be the interest of Nigeria.
Yes.
Anything the president is doing should be in the interest of Nigeria.
Exactly.
If some Nigerians think that the cabinet formation was underwhelming, some of the members of his kitchen cabinet too are not as impressive as a lot of people expected. Where and how do you think the president can impress Nigeria? Because it's like putting the coach, the Nigerian national team coach, the football men team, has to be one that Nigerians, because an average Nigerian is a football coach and could tell you where any players could be. So when you are picking the players, the Nigerian people will pick for you.
That is
now,
football.
In the case of the minister, an average Nigerian also pride himself like a president that this person does not fit. For the president to impress Nigerians, what do you think the president should look out for? Politics or competence?
No, it's a mixture of the two. Because it is politics that brought Mr. President down.
But there are people who say the president has paid politics. He has satisfied some politicians in this last appointment.
Look, if you rely only on competence, I mean, I'm not saying it should be devoid of competence, but it should be a mixture of competence and politics. Because without, you bring a lot of people in, we may rely on the supposed confidence. If there's they cannot represent their constituencies. They don't know anybody there. Nobody can talk to them. They are unreachable. So it is very important that politics should be, very, important.
The likes of Okonjo-Iweala, they were not political. They were technocrats.
They were technocrats.
I mean, if you need people to shape and fix the Nigerian
Would you imagine a government made up only of people of competence without political value? I mean, the government cannot survive.
So President Tinubu should
balance that. There must be a balance.
But there are those who say that this cabinet is more political than competent.
Well, if that is it, then, the president has an opportunity to, improve upon the recruitment process for ministers, because
or does it at the likes of KPMG of this world or these
at the end of the day,
agencies to be able to help
one who was
in the assessment?
Well, it depends also, because in the Nigerian sector, we always have what is called the Nigerian factor. What is Nigerian factor? It's about corruption, it's about compromises, it's about cutting corners, and all of that. So one cannot rely solely on professional recruitment, elements, because they don't know anything about politics.
Finally, the urgency of time is also there.
Yeah.
If the president does not perform, he loses his connection with the Nigerian people. Exactly. Second time is actually out of the plate.
Yeah.
As a party person,
yes.
How urgent and how critical is this?
There's no doubt it is very, very urgent. Because Nigerians cannot wait until you satisfy, personal whimsies and personal idiosyncrasy. You are recruited for a 4-year term certain to perform. If you don't perform, what would be the report you give to the public?
Mr. Adebayo Oshitu is the former Minister of Communications. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight.